price of chicken has shot up quite substantially in recent years. This has been quite negative in the South African context, where chicken serves as a primary protein for consumption, with price-sensitive consumers having to think twice about whether they can afford to buy this basic food. However, Absa's AgriTrends Report suggests that while chicken prices may still rise in the coming years, those increases will likely be below average inflation. Well, to elaborate on this issue for us, I'm joined by Nkhensani Mashimbyi, Economist at Absa Agri Business. Thank you very much for joining us. So before we get into the details, how important is chicken as a meat for South Africans?
Thank you very much, Nompu, to you and your listeners. Good afternoon. So in terms of meat consumption in South Africa, we actually consume chicken as like 3/4 of all the meat basket that we consume is chicken. So it forms a substantial amount of the meat that we depend on, Nompu.
So what are the factors that drove chicken prices higher in the past number of years?
So the factors that usually drive price increases, these disease outbreaks. That is why we see double-digit prices increases. We saw last year when we had the avian influenza outbreak that prices rose to double digits, and it led to quite a significant amount being culled in the local market, and drove prices significantly higher than what most consumers could afford. So diseases continue to place a significant risk, not only in South Africa, but it's a global phenomena as well.
Yeah, and just remind us, what's the situation in terms of chicken import tariffs into South Africa? Because it seemed that they've been sort of switched on and off in recent years. And how much do those impact on price in the local market?
Nompu, there was a discussion in the wake of the avian influenza-driven supply shock. So currently there is a tariff rebate of 25% on bone-in cuts and 30% on non-bone chicken cuts. But there is a quota of about 200,000 tons, because although we consume a lot of chicken, we do depend on these imports, which so our consumption is about 2.5 million tons, and we produce just over 200 tons. So the imports are necessary, and the department deemed it important to give those rebates in the wake of the shortages. However, the industry feels that there is no cause for concern currently in the market, and we do applaud the department for setting that quota.
Yeah. So what data are you gleaning from that suggests to you that the price trajectory of chicken is going to improve and rise below average inflation levels?
So the green shoots currently in the agriculture industry and in the poultry industry as well is the appreciation of the rand. It's important to consider this. As I mentioned, we do depend on quite a significant, about 20% of our consumption is dependent on imports. So after the formation of the Government of National Unity, the market responded favorably to this. So the rand dipped below 18 rand per dollar. And we do see that there's still scope with possibilities of interest rate cuts now in September. So that gives the rand to strengthen further within 2025. But above that, we see that major producers such as Brazil have responded favorably to the global lower maize prices by increasing production for the broiler market. We do depend quite significantly on imports from Brazil. So they're essentially responding to this with increased production, essentially drove down international prices. And bringing this feed prices story closer to home, you'll remember that we were affected by the midsummer drought, which caused our local yellow maize prices to actually increase. But our view is that with the higher possibility of the weather phenomenon changing to a La Nina, which is associated with increased rainfall, we expect prices to trade back closer to export parity. So when those prices decrease in 2025, production locally is expected to respond, and which will essentially eventually drive prices lower.
Yeah, and one last question very quickly. When it comes to the various diseases that have afflicted poultry, do you think South Africa is getting a better handle on those issues to help prevent future crises, or is it just one of those things where, you know, you have to just deal with it when it arises?
Nombo, in our new minister's budget vote in July, he did emphasize the importance of getting the biosecurity issues when it comes to livestock, to the livestock sector. He emphasized the importance, and various stakeholders continue to emphasize that there is no growth for us if we don't address this. What I commend is that there were funds within the budget ring-fenced to improve the biosecurity issues, such as he even made suggestion of a track and trace system, and when we want to play in the global market, traceability is very important. So increasing surveillance and investment in medicine and vaccines in the sector seems to be taking ground, but more could definitely be done. But what also matters is the agile response that we've seen. So when an outbreak happens, it needs to be communicated, and transparency is important in this regard.
Indeed. Nkhensani, thank you so much for your time and insights. Nkhensani Mashimbyi, she's an economist at Absa Agri Business.